to a marketing session today. Yeah, in the back.
How do you work it into a membership into a long-term marketing plan? Right, what parts it's going to take, where does it fit?
How does membership fit into marketing, or how do we keep our members for a really, really long time?
Yes.
Yes. And in the green, you had a hand up?
Yeah, just that I'm a really small nonprofit, so it's me and maybe an AmeriCorps member and possibly a board member at Dragon. So how simple way to have a marketing thing that we can all address.
Great, great. So when we get and we start talking about like how do you do the down and dirty version, okay? We'll be talking your language. Okay, what else? I printed out. Oh yeah, in the back.
I wanted to hear case studies.
Okay, I've got some stories for you. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
Ways to increase membership.
Increasing membership. And actually, I printed out some of the keywords from the title, so I'm wondering if this word brought you here today.
Yes.
Okay, then talk to me about increasing what? Numbers of people doing what?
Giving you money?
Number of people giving us money. No, okay.
Attending program.
Number of people attending educational programs?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Volunteering.
The number of people volunteering, and what else?
Letters to the editor of support.
So kind of like actions that indicate support for maybe a policy issue or something you're advocating for?
Number of people that come back.
Oh, so you don't want just the one-off, you want the ongoing relationship?
Right.
So more people who are kind of my long-term, loyal, engaged folks. Love that. Okay. Here's another word in the title. Anyone come in here for support? Okay, just tell me, what does support mean? Is it still money and people?
Yeah. Moral support.
Moral support? It can be hard to be the voice in the wilderness, so to speak.
And just having people that have a vested interest in the mission of an organization.
The vested interest, so that connection.
Yeah.
They feel like you belong to them.
Or that, they're really a part of what's going on.
Okay. Was this a word for anybody?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You keep raising your hand like everything. Boom. Me. And what's going on with membership these days? Are we flat? Who's flat? Who's up? Who's down? Okay. For those of you who are down, who are we losing? Do people come in 1 year and go the next year, or are we losing long-term people?
The whole movement's old, so
So we're losing...
gradually losing some of your wealthier, older supporters.
You mean literally? Okay. This doesn't help with that part of the issue because there's other nuances to cultivate. Okay. Yes.
I know for us, I'm in the Gulf Coast, and so we had a huge increase in support and membership after the BP oil disaster.
You did.
And we had two things. I think one, we're not as much in the front in terms of people's consciousness, but also we did a huge database change, and that has been very painful. So in terms of us communicating well, that's been hard to do with the long, painful process of getting a new database. So we really need to reconnect with our members.
I don't know if everyone here is on the Gulf Coast, so there was this upshoot in interest that's starting to wane. And for it's coinciding with the shift in database, and the technology has created some obstacles, and they're really feeling like we need to reconnect with some of that energy and support.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else have any technology issues that get in the way? Whoa. Okay. Like what?
Database doesn't work, or I don't have time to make it work.
Okay.
Yes.
What else?
Mostly I don't have time.
Okay. We don't have time. Yeah.
Yeah, our database is 15 years old.
Database in the back too?
We actually have older members who aren't tech savvy.
Yeah. Right.
Oh,
right.
man, do I hear that with the land trust folks too? Let me tell you. Talk about an aging support base.
Right.
And I had some technology hands over here.
What she said.
Okay. Okay. So we're ready to move forward into the new century. Maybe our supporters aren't necessarily. They still want to know where's the paper newsletter. Yeah. Right? Okay.
Maybe they don't want to.
Maybe they don't want to. Although the demographics of Facebook users maybe argue that when you look at who's growing there. So what does participation look like if you have folks who are really with you and supporting your issues, giving you money? What does participation mean? for you? How do you know you really got them for the long term?
Showing up to events and like meetings, if we're in a meeting for me to show support, and then also just getting feedback from them, like getting emails and phone calls.
So there's some ongoing communication, and it sounds like it goes 2 ways.
Yes.
Okay. What else does participation look like in your organizations?
Donations.
So evidence by money. Okay. Membership, volunteers. Okay. So if we're to break it down, it sounds like we need more money. We need more people, not just giving money, but doing stuff. Whether that's volunteering, or coming to sessions, or helping us advocate, right? We want them not just today, but we then want them tomorrow, the next day, the next year, the next decade. We have on top of that some demographic challenges in some cases where we have a support base that is skewing a little older. So who's worried about who's the next audience? About a quarter of you? Okay. And we have some small shops as well, so we're worried about, well, that's great. This stuff is great in theory. How do I actually do it? I don't even have enough time to get the database up and running. Right? What am I missing? Okay. Real quickly, logistical thing, if you've come in since I said this last time, we had an issue with the materials. They're in the hotel somewhere, I don't know where. So there are 2 things to know. One, there are a few sets here, so huddle up so you can sort of see. And secondly, don't leave without either giving me your business card or signing up on one of my sign-up sheets. If I get your email address, I'll PDF it to you, okay? It's got some good materials in it I think you'll want for your records, all right? So my name is Karen Buck. I'm with a company called Conservation Impact. We're based in Denver, Colorado. We do organizational development with conservation-related nonprofits and government agencies. Organizational development is how do we make these organizations stronger and sustainable and get results towards our mission? Because you're nonprofits, so just sticking around isn't enough. Okay? There's a group the next watershed over, and trust me, I work with some of those groups. And if you're not filling your niche, they're looking to say, they're not doing X over there, right? So we've got to get results towards our mission as well. All right? I've come to this work. I've been doing this type of development work for about 5 or 6, I don't even know, years. Company's been around for about 15. But my background before this is in fundraising. And the intersection between marketing and fundraising, or in this case maybe marketing and membership or volunteerism, is right here. So that's just a little bit about my bias towards this. My bias towards this is the same as my bias towards special event fundraising. If you're gonna go do it, let's capture all the goodness from it as we can. Let's make it really matter for your organization, okay? One-off relationships, people showing up one time to an educational program or writing one letter to the editor or giving a donation one time is not what we're looking for. We want long-term engaged relationships with people who resonate with what we do. People who find themselves in your mission and your cause. Please note I said your mission and your cause, not your organization. Okay? People resonate with the mission. People connect with a nonprofit because they can't affect that mission on their own to the same extent they can by aligning with you. It's the same reason why major donors remember you in their will. Okay? Because they can't get that same goodness done all by themselves. They have to join together with like-minded folks. So remember, we're looking for connection around the mission, not necessarily the organization, because if your organization was gone tomorrow and someone came in doing the same work, they care about that river, that body of water, that watershed. Okay? So, just help me a little bit more. Who's staff of a nonprofit? Just give me handles. Any board members? Okay, staff, when we have board members who come to a session like this, because every staff member here, where do we wish our board members were right now?
Here.
Right here next to us. Okay. Okay, so thank you for coming, really. Your staff really appreciate that. Anyone from not a nonprofit, from a government entity or something else? A few, and where are you all from?
I'm from the city of Portland.
City of Portland?
Tribal government.
Great.
Montana Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay, so some agency folks. Okay, great. And who's in charge of, or feels like maybe they're the person who gets the marketing stuff put on them? Who's in charge of it? Okay. Who's officially in charge, like it's in your job description? Okay, all right. And I'm curious about your experience doing marketing or outreach. If one is, I've never done it before, I wouldn't know marketing if it bit me. 10 being, there's nothing new you're going to teach me here today. Where am I like 2 to 4s? Like feeling like you're kind of a newbie? A few folks, okay. About a third. Okay, my mid-range, like 5, 6, 7s. Okay. Where are my hot shots? Where are my 9s, 10s? Got a couple hot shots in there. Okay.
You let us have 8.
Yeah, 8.
Oh, sorry. 8s, get out of here. This isn't for you. My 8s through 10s, as we're going through this, especially the gentleman who talked about the case studies, as we're going through this, and if there's a story you know of that illustrates some of this, please jump in, because I think it helps to find yourself in some of these theoretical stuff if you can hear how it works on the ground. Okay? So please do chime in. The purpose that I have today is really to introduce marketing concepts and tools that can be applied and reach and engage markets. I don't want just people to know about you. If you come here, if you leave here today and say that your marketing goal is to raise awareness about your organization, no. We don't want people to know about us. You just told me it's participation, it's people showing up, they're doing it regularly on an ongoing basis. That's engagement, okay? Don't settle for awareness. If people know about you and won't take action on your behalf, so what? Okay, we're going for engagement, all right? And I want engagement that achieves specific results. So I want to know, we want to engage them to increase the number of volunteers by 20% in 2 years, right? I want to target. I want to know what I'm going for, all right? So this is what I want you to leave today knowing how to do, which means I want you to learn about identifying and reaching new audiences. How do I get to a practical, scaled for my organization marketing plan? How do I use that to meet my specific goals? And how do I use strategic marketing to strengthen my organization? Okay? Because your mission is probably not to market, right? So this is means and ends. Okay, marketing is a means to your organizational ends. All right? An off-topic example, I used to work for 6 years for a cancer services organization. I knew who my people were. I knew who my target audience was. I knew everything about them. I could get them to come to all sorts of stuff. I raised a bunch of money off these folks. It was great. They loved it. They were engaged. They were also the perfect audience for a cigar tasting, which was big and trendy in Denver about 8 or 9 years ago. But we were a cancer organization, and that was really not contributing to our overall organizational strength, right? In fact, how would that look? So we want to be aligned. That's what gets you strong and sustainable, is aligned. Just because you can do it, sometimes, can't believe I'm going to say it, it is okay to leave some of that money on the table. I could have made so much money with that too. Dang. So I want you to take just a minute. One thing that I know from doing this and just from my own educational background is that as adults, this is going to stick in your head better if you have a hook. Okay, so we can take just a minute. What are the 2 or 3 things you really, really want to make sure you come away with today? 2 or 3 things you want to make sure you learn. I want you to actually write it down, okay? Because that's going to be your hook that you can literally hang some of these concepts on as we walk through them. So take just a minute. So to summarize what I heard from you when I was holding up the signs, it sounds like it would be most helpful if I honed in on, what are just the steps so we kind of know that we're doing it right. We're not skipping the stuff that makes it actually successful, because there's some middle steps lots of people miss. It's the analyzing, picking your market stuff. Sounds like going through that so folks have familiarity would be useful. It sounds like the connection between marketing and getting that result you want is having the strategies right. I know you and my audience, but if I don't have the right strategy to engage you, you're not going to come volunteer for me. So honing on how do we make sure the strategies really fit our audience and what we're trying to get them to do. And then it sounds like some pieces around, I would say kind of like scaling, but also maybe implementation. Because a lot of times, especially if you're a smaller group, it's not just how do I not bite off too much, it's how do I actually get it down to what do I do on Tuesday? So that by end of December, I'm where I want to be. That implementation stuff, how do I break it down? If I make sure I hone in on that, am I getting to the things you just wrote down for why you're here? Does it sound right? Yeah.
I don't know if it's a different topic, but we live in such a small town area. I think our marketing might be different than if we were, say, in Seattle, in a bigger city.
Okay. So how do we customize?
Customize for what actually works in our area with the amount of time we have and blah, blah, blah.
Okay.
It seems a little, I don't know if that question's in there.
Okay. No, but that's good to point out. And what else? I thought I saw another hand. Yeah.
I'm not sure if this would be included, but I feel like we really need help sort of refining our message and being able to convey the most important and compelling information about our watershed, the problems, and what we're doing about it.
Say it one more time. Your message, what you're...
Refining our message to include the most compelling and important information about our watershed, the problems or threats, and what our organization is doing to make it better,
Okay, and you know that the message you have right now isn't working because of what?
Well, I'm not saying it's not working, but I have a science background. I'm not like a super great people person, and I'm the staff scientist, but also I'm in charge of memberships and outreach.
I love nonprofits. Okay.
Yeah.
It's how other duties as a sign job. Yeah.
Not to mention a lot of other things, but
Yes.
So I just really feel like
You kind of maybe sometimes feel like maybe something gets lost in translation.
Yeah, I just feel like there's so much information, details, data that I could talk all day, but I don't want to. Yeah, people don't really necessarily care, about those numbers unless some people do, but not when you first talk to them.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. You know what I like about that? Well, first of all, does anyone else kind of have a similar, like, somehow they're not hearing us or we're not getting through, or like there's almost like a language barrier? Anyone? I'm seeing some nodding.
I don't have that. It's just I think after you've been in an organization for a while, you need to refresh your message. So that's kind of where I am.
Forest and
how
trees,
to communicate
sort of
effectively, and I'm hearing and saying it over and over again, and I need a fresh outlook.
Great. And I saw a hand here and then a hand here. Yeah.
Well, I think one of our issues is to continually make it matter for the people we talk to, because our organization isn't like a clean water, we do some recreation stuff, but we're busy like suing to protect wild and scenic rivers, and phosphorus input about algae blooms down in behind a dam.
Sexy.
It's not really. It's controversial and very political, and we're not in a state where we get a lot of support. And B, it's not human. I don't get to say support us because we make sure that you get to drink clean water. It's a lot more abstract, and it's values-based, which I find more difficult to message to get somebody to care that doesn't naturally already care and come to. We get people approaching us, but it's harder to convince other people.
We'll get a little bit to this piece, but you and I may want to chat afterwards. I just finished a fundraising plan for a water education organization that has similar kinds of struggles with the values.
Okay, cool.
Okay, and then there was a hand. Yes.
Well, I just, how do you message to people without, acting like they're stupid, but without, using all the big wonky words. Like I've been using, watershed, and then realizing a lot of people don't know what watershed even means. So how do you bring this message without dumbing it down to a point where it's almost insulting, or but still trying to get people engaged in so just the general marketing concepts that work.
Great. And then one in the back here.
So I work for a national campaign. I never actually meet the people that I'm talking to, so I'm really interested in how to get people through the internet.
Okay. Anyone else think about internet, social media? Wow. Okay. Okay. Then we'll save some time because I've got some stuff here about social media that we can talk through, and there's some great stuff online too, some really good recent research that I'll get you to download. In terms of the messaging pieces, what I want you to make sure we listen for is ways that we get some external information and perspective, because that's part of it, okay? And that's going to be a lot in our research and kind of getting to know our target market, because the thing that's really important, I'm going to get a little conceptual on you now, is that this is a lot of times what we think marketing is, and marketing is not this stuff, not if it's effective, okay? We think about marketing as, we want you to get to know me, I want to push this out, and I want you to call it a watershed, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that, and then pushing it out. And we often shy away from doing it because we think we're kind of selling or trying to convince people, and that's not real comfortable. We also sometimes think it's such a good mission, and it's water, and who doesn't care about water, and everybody should care about the water. Who thinks that?
All of us.
Okay, let's talk for a second. Not everybody's going to care. Okay. I'm really sorry. I'm telling you this, but not everybody's going to care. There's a bell curve to everything, right? These people are in your pocket. No matter what happens, they would always be there. These people over here, what do they call you? They actually actively probably hate you, think that you're anti, whatever they want to call you. Okay, so what? Not everybody's going to care, A. And B, there's a lot of competition out there. I mean, how many people now feel like their fundraising competition maybe isn't the watershed, or if I'm the watershed group, it's the advocacy group. Who now feels like part of their fundraising competition is the local food bank?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
competition since 2008 is a whole new world, okay? So that's another reason why not everybody's gonna care, because people care about lots of stuff and everybody prioritizes differently.
I would say competition has also changed to, like for the TV or for Facebook, or, so.
Yeah. What else can I do with my time except come volunteer with you?
Right.
Absolutely, that's a great point. Yeah, and that's something to think about, is like, what are the other alternatives for taking the action we want them to take? So here's just where marketing fits. This is our, and I've got, if anyone's interested, I've got a piece on this, a book up here. This is a visualization of our integrated strategy for being a successful, sustainable nonprofit. It says you have to be strong in these areas if you're going to survive and make impact towards your mission. And identity speaks to a clear mission, clear goals. I can say what I'm about and where we're going. Capacity is I have the money, systems, human capacity to get the work done. And constituents is a lot of what we're talking about here today. I have enough base of constituents, engaged, loyal people who will take significant action for my organization, for my mission, okay? Constituent not in the political sense. Constituent in the sense of hydrogen and oxygen are constituent elements of water. And if you take one away, you no longer have water. And I would argue to you, if we take your constituents away, kind of so what? So what if it's you as staff and board caring about these things, if nobody else cares enough to do anything? Technically, you might exist, but you're not really getting anything done. These folks we're talking about, this is not about convincing and selling. This isn't about like, oh, if I do this for you, you'll do this for me. This is a fundamental building block of your organization, okay? It's in service to the mission. right? That's why I didn't get to do my cigar event, because it wasn't a service mission. And it's a fundamental organizational practice, like balancing your organization's books. Okay, it's fundamental. So if you tell me we don't have time for doing marketing and outreach, I'd say, well, then you don't have time to do the speculating on your stool. Right? I mean, it's this fundamental. So this is the piece I want you to take away from that. So really then, if we're shifting away from this, away from getting them to feel how we want them to feel, if we're not pushing out, let us tell you how great we are, how special we are, every reason why you should care. Then what we're actually doing is trying to find the common ground between your organization and their needs and interests. Okay? That's another reason why not everyone on the bell curve is going to care, because not everybody has a need and interest that overlaps necessarily. Okay? So that's what we're moving toward. We're building relationship. But you're an organization, so it's not just one-on-one, so you have to be a little bit more systematic and take it to scale, which is why we're going to use some marketing tools to do that. There are a few golden rules in marketing. This is my favorite because it comes with a picture. Anyone remember Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come is not a marketing strategy. You all do amazing work. You make a real difference. You really benefit your resource. You benefit your communities. You benefit anyone who is affected by the water quality being better. And yet, you came here today to talk about marketing, and when I put increase up, all of you raised your hands. Okay, just doing good work is not enough. Marketing is about taking that good work and finding ways to communicate it that work so that people will actually come out to the field with you. Okay? So, I want to just really quickly what you have on page 4 of the handout, if you can see one, and you'll see this when you get it, is a little mini audit that asks you some key questions. So I'm just going to ask a few, since not everybody can see this. I'm just going to ask a few, and I'd love to hear some of your answers. I was going to actually have you do this for a few minutes, but that's not real feasible given our logistical issues. So tell me, is there anyone here who can tell me your organization's kind of top 3 target audiences? Yes.
Well, our top 3 audiences are the people that are in our pocket, people that are already volunteering, and then people that live within 20 miles of the Mississippi River but believe that it's someone else's problem.
Okay.
And we just open up to a new audience, specifically religious communities.
Okay. Great, thank you. Anyone else know who their top 3 markets are for their organization? Yeah.
Boaters, fishermen, and conservationists in Idaho.
Okay.
That's how we typically.
Okay.
I think have to market differently to all 3 of those groups.
Okay. Because they're interacting with the water differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they want different things.
They do.
Yeah.
Thanks for sure. Who asked? Here's that question. It goes 3 markets. Okay. Anyone feel like they don't sort of know who their market is above and beyond folks in my geographic area? You can be brave. We're all friends here. Okay. That just tells you something about an understanding about who your audiences are. Yes.
I think we have a really broad mission, and I feel like we have 1,000 people we could be targeting, and so we don't have just 3 or 3 top. When we talk about our target audiences, it's like shotgun.
Okay. And how many staff do you have?
1 full-time, 4 part-time.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Because there's a definite correlation between capacity and number of audiences you can actually effectively engage with. Yeah.
I feel like in our mission statement we say, we're not the Trout Unlimited, we're not anything, we're the group for all people. So for voters, recreationists, agriculture, all of it. But I don't feel like that's our target audience per se. That's who we're serving, but I don't know who we're targeting with our message and with what we're doing. I feel like there's a disconnect there between who we say we serve and who we actually need to work with.
Okay, and that's an interesting point. You may have one market that's you focus in on for, say, fundraising purposes, and some other markets you focus on for service delivery, and they may or may not overlap. If this were a human services conference, that would be universal. right? Because we're not going to balance the food bank with the people we serve at the food bank, right? So that's not uncommon. Yeah.
Because we're in a very rural and small watershed in Forest County in Ohio, so the people that we are trying to serve even in our geographic boundary of the watershed can't really contribute to the cause, so we have to look elsewhere and look to the bigger towns that are around us.
Okay, sure. All right. So I'm curious then, what types of mechanisms, systems, processes do you have in place when someone first becomes aware of you? So you do a river cleanup day and a bunch of folks in the community hear your name for the first time. Any systems or mechanisms in place to take them from awareness to actually doing something, becoming a member or signing up for your newsletter or something like that? Any system in place for that? I call it the conversion system. Anyone would like a specific conversion? Yeah, in the back.
Yeah, so anytime we have a volunteer event or, I don't know, tabling or whatever, yeah, we just have people, sign their name if they're interested in more information, and then we immediately put them into a database, and then kind of, if we have their email address, sign them up for e-news alerts, and then if we get their address, obviously appeal them, and then also through email, as the time comes, we try to send them an email appeal, so hopefully as they're kind of getting logged on and getting familiar with our organization, hopefully they'll either give email or.
Excellent. Okay. Anyone else have an example? Yeah.
Well, we do a couple of paddling trips every year. One of our trustees owns a shop. They donate everything, and they sign up through their database, and then just at the end of it, we tell them at the beginning, everyone who goes on the trips, if you're not a member, you're automatically going to have an annual membership. They just email us the information that we enter them. So.
Did you hear that? I just want, like, any of my fundraisers in there, did you hear what she said? That little nuance about, they come to my event and we tell them you get a free membership for a year. Like, automatically, they're, like, stuck hearing from you for a year. I love that. Everybody do that with your events where you get their names. Okay, great. So some of you have some systems in place. For others, is it more sort of catch as catch can? Like, maybe we capture them, maybe we don't? I'm getting nothing. Okay, let me ask that a different way. Anyone like have a big event and like not capture any of the contact information? Okay. Then let me ask you just one more. There's your identity, right? How you define yourself, your goals, what you're about. I say that there's your image, how people externally perceive you. Okay? So my question to you is, do people outside of you see you the same way you see the organization? Or differently? You think so, and why?
Because I visit and talk with them and ask them, and they tell me, well, you're doing a good job this way, or you're not that way, and you get feedback.
I don't know if you heard in the back. Okay, he said, yeah, I think that it is the same. I said, well, how do you know that? He said, because I visit with people. I ask them how we're doing. They give me feedback. This is good. That's bad. I saw a hand over here.
Oh,
yeah.
I was saying, I think people the feedback I get when people talk to us say, oh, you're doing so much. It's so amazing what you do. You da-da-da-da-da-da. I think they have a much bigger image of our organization than we ever could hope to be. And I get that also from people, random community members who call us up and assume that we can fix their every problem, anything to do with Earth, kind of thing, because they think we're this huge organization and we're tiny. We have 1.7 FTE.
Who else does that happen to? I see them a lot. Yeah, okay.
So I'm not sure we should market, I
wonder. I hear you. Yeah, in the back.
The people that we can sit down and visit with seem to think similarly, because we do ask them. It's the people outside of that just see our name in the paper or come to one thing or whatever that I'm not sure see us the same. And I'm not sure how to better correlate that because it's broad.
Excellent. Okay. I'm going to do here and here, and then we're going to kind of...
Yeah, and we're a Waterkeeper organization, and like she was saying, sometimes the things that we're doing are controversial, and so there are, I think, members of our community who think all we do are sue people, and that's how we get all our money. And then there are people who think we do way more than we could, or want us to do way more than we can possibly do. But then we've this year done open houses where we've actually invited people to come in and we tell our story and we follow up with a phone call and we ask them what they think. And in that situation, what we're finding is, wow, you do so much more than I thought you did. So it's almost the opposite.
That's what I was just thinking. It's really interesting. I don't know if you heard, said we're a waterkeeper organization, and a lot of folks think all we do is sue people. Anyone else have that? It's all we do is litigate. So yeah, sometimes I see it. Sometimes I see we have a nonprofit where people think we're way bigger and do more than we actually do, and other times people reduce us down to one thing, and they don't see all this other stuff. Okay, and I have one hand in the yes.
So I'm with a state organization, but I also serve on the steering committee of our statewide watershed council, which acts a lot like the network that was for the city of Montana. And one problem that we're facing that is kind of a growing concern that it may become a perception is that a lot of our steering committee is made up of agency folks because maybe give the paid positions to be able to devote a little bit of time to it. And that we're becoming a council for the agency and not a council for the watershed groups. Which, even though a lot of us are agency people, our focus is for the watershed groups.
Absolutely. Okay, great. So the takeaways I want you from this, and again, this is in the book, and we'll get you the PDF of this. This is a good exercise to do with your staff or with your board. This is going to help you see some things. First of all, if some questions you just can't answer, like, yeah, we don't know who our target markets are, it just sort of tells you something about sort of where you are developing your marketing approach, okay? It also can highlight out some of the obstacles, like, wow, how we see ourselves and what we're about and how others perceive us is different, or we think it is, or we have no way of knowing because we never actually talk to people, we just send out emails and newsletters, which is also, unfortunately, kind of common for some folks. So it'll help you start to see, and can you already see how if people perceive us differently, then our concerns about messaging tie to that, right? Like, well, yeah, of course maybe they don't get our messaging about this other program because they just think we're this and they can't get that out of their head, right? So of course that other message maybe doesn't connect. So it'll help you get your arms around what's going on in an organization right now, where are the strengths in our operation when it comes to marketing, and where maybe we want to focus to get a little bit more clear. I point to that first because we're now going to spend time talking about how do you do this marketing plan, how do you reach these people, the external stuff. But if you're really going to implement it, getting a grip on that internal stuff is going to actually make it go. So I don't want to ignore that, all right? So ideally, a nonprofit would have a marketing plan. This is a very rough, very bare bones outline. You don't actually have to have a document if you're not that kind of organization, but you would, to convince me you had a marketing plan, you'd have to, talk me through this, right? It starts with a specific purpose or goal, like we're marketing for X. And most of the time, who's done strategic planning sometime in the last 2 to 3 years? Most of you, okay. Whose strategic plan has something that you could call a marketing or outreach goal in it?
Sort of.
Sort of something that kind of points to some kind of engagement of people other than us. Okay. So the marketing plan usually is what guides how you're actually going to get that strategic goal met. Right? So what is the goal? What's the purpose? We do the analysis piece to figure things out like, well, what is going on in the external environment? Like, oh, we live in the poorest county in the state. That's important information to have, right? It's good to know that. Oh, there's 3 new water-related groups that came into our region of the state in the last 5 years. And one of them is Hot Chart, and everybody's talking about them, right? It's good to know what's going on with competition. So this type of research, the type of research that helps you figure out who your audience should be. And then the strategies, and then again, the organizational development stuff. Now that's kind of for your full marketing plan, and you've got in the handout a full-on what it is, so if you really want to go do the whole thing. But the down and dirty version, someone was over here, yeah, has 4 things in it that we're going to walk through now. A clear, specific goal. Okay? some research and analysis. So we've got to ground this in something objective. Back to the idea of like maybe our messaging is a little murky because we're kind of too of one perspective or something. Or we're too, we've just been in it so much we can't see it. That helps us get some objectivity, okay, a little bit of research. So if you've got that scientific background, you're going to love that part. And you can do it cheaply, easily, quickly. Doing this here does not need to take you 6 months or 6 weeks, okay? You can do this pretty quickly. So a clear goal, research analysis, a specific target market or two. Did you hear that again? A specific target market or two, unless you are a big national with a whole lot of staffing capacity, then perhaps we can pull that apart and have capacity to do more. But if you actually want participation, which you told me you did, we actually want people to be with us for the long term, then you're not talking about casually dating here, okay? We're not just like going out for a fling. We kind of want to get married, right? And you don't do that by like getting serious about 20 people at the same time. Okay? So capacity and markets. And in the back here, we're kind of talking about, we feel like there's a lot of people affected. Picking 1 or 2 markets right now doesn't mean never. It means we're going to do this first, and then once we get that up and running and those folks engaged, we're going to go to the next thing, okay? It's not taking it off the table, but it's sequencing it based on your capacity to do it so that we do it right and really get them, really engage them. Does that make sense?
Can I ask you a quick question?
Yeah.
How targeted down do you need to get with that? I mean, if you're saying recreational users of the water, is that too broad? Are you mostly looking at boaters or fishermen or?
The question was, how far do you narrow down to get to the target market? Can you just say like recreational boaters, for example? And I would say it depends on the goal and what the analysis tells you.
Okay.
So we'll walk through some examples to help you kind of figure that out. So that's selecting your target market, which is of all the options, who's most likely to help us get the goal met, right? So it's a fundraising goal. Who's most likely to give you the kind of money you want and the amounts you want it? We got to go there first before we're going to go to the people we have to convince about something, okay? And then we want to develop this customized strategy. So those are the 4 points. The clear goal, the analysis so we get some objectivity into this thing, picking our specific market, and then customizing that program of strategies to really connect with them.
Are you going to include tips on where we can mine this data and get that research?
Yes, I am. That's where we're going to go next, actually. But first, for just a second, indulge me in my goal spiel. I'm sure you've heard this because most of you just did strategic planning sometime in the last few years, and hopefully whomever was facilitating that said what I'm about to say. And that is your goal for marketing must be specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time framed. Again, if you leave here today and you say, my marketing goal is to build awareness, I'm going to cry. I mean, really. So a marketing goal looks more like going to reach and engage a target audience of, in order to do X, okay? So if it's to raise money, we want to engage 100 new members in the next 2 years at least this dollar amount and retain them at an 80% retention rate.
Can you repeat that?
The whole thing or the goal example?
The whole thing.
Okay.
It's SMART.
It's SMART, so it's specific. I wish there was a marker. Measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. So I want it specific, so you know if you get there or not. That's the same reason I want it measurable. I want it achievable and realistic, so that if you tell me you live in the poorest county in Ohio and you say you want to raise $8 million and it's never been done, we can say, let's talk about that. And I want it time framed because we need to break it down, thank you very much, so that we get it done because you have a lot of other things to do. Okay? So, if you have a marketing goal already that you think is smart, awesome. If you don't, here's the questions I want you to consider. What is the action you want taken? Is it that you want them to become members at thus and such level? Is it that you want them to show up at these educational workshops? What's the action you want taken? Okay? And then I want you to ask, okay, we want folks taking that action. How much of that action being taken is success for us? Okay? Is it 1 new member? Is it 50 new members? Right? Is it 10% more people at our cleanup event? Is it a doubling? How much equals success? This is that specific piece. Okay? I want to know what that target is. And then I want you to think about, so if I had that, if I had that many people taking that action, what difference would it make? Like, why? So I want to make sure it's actually built in your organization. Okay, so if it's just people to come and be a volunteer with me, that's great. That's the basis of your organization, right? But maybe, I don't know that if you're a Riverkeeper group and most of your work is around litigation, perhaps, on the ground, cleanup type volunteer engagement doesn't actually help with your mission like it would if you were a different kind of group. I don't know, I'm making that one up. So, what difference would it make, and is that actually what our organization needs the most right now? Okay? If the difference it would make would be stabilize a decreasing funding base, then it might be the most important thing you could do in marketing. Okay? But what difference it makes matters, because again, this is going to take some time. And I don't want you to waste your time on stuff. And then it's the time frame. So these are some questions to help you back into a goal that's smart. Okay? So your goal is really a statement of your result that you want. So at this point, who feels like they have a marketing goal in mind that's somewhere in the neighborhood of being smart? I'm kind of seeing a little bit of this. So if you feel like you've got a goal right now. Okay. For those of you who don't, I'm curious why that is. Is it just that we haven't gotten around to getting specific about it yet, or is there something else afoot? Yeah.
Well, one thing I think is that we have some confusion about whether we should be marketing the organization or the campaign or the program activities, because we do several different things, and different people on the board have different ideas about which is the most important.
Okay, excellent. That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
I think we have a role clarity problem because everyone tends to be in charge of their own thing. And so, we've got education, marketing over here, we've got membership marketing over here, we've kind of got general e-news over here. So we're, again.
Okay. So a couple of things. I'm talking about this in the context of marketing for the organization as a whole. Okay? That's just the context I'm using right now. So if you are here thinking with just like your specific program hat on, or if there's a specific program or even like a fundraising campaign, something real specific, you can do the same thing and apply these same tools. So for some organizations that are sort of the seven-headed hydra, sometimes it makes sense. I have a mini marketing plan for this fundraising event and one over here for this educational program. But probably if you want to get to that next level, there's probably some organizational need overall that can only be filled by some folks external engaging with you in some way. Okay? So if you don't have a specific marketing goal overall for the organization, you should work to get in that way. And then to your point of having different folks kind of doing different things, then other things should align under that. Okay? So if you have a situation where over here the flyer looks like this and over here the flyer looks like that, think about how that looks like from the outside. Right? So you know, you want to at least take some steps towards bringing things into alignment. Okay? So it sounds like part of those of us who maybe don't have a goal is we're not entirely sure what our marketing plan would be for. This, that, or the whole. Okay? Other obstacles or barriers folks run into with having a goal at this stage of the game? Yeah.
I think, like, coming up with the what is realistic can be difficult, especially, like, unless if you spent 10 years with an organization and you spent a lot of time, sometimes making that is kind of a scary, you don't want to over or undershoot too much, you know, like how many new members is realistic for
So it's sort of this thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, I'm like the new membership director at our organization. I know some things that have worked and some things that haven't, but I don't really know what I feel like for me in my first full year would be an attainable goal for new membership.
Okay.
And sometimes that's, I feel like that's a hindrance to get going sometimes.
Okay. Well, and that fear can be real. There are a couple things for that. First, if you're the staff person lower on the totem pole and you don't have that clarity, you got to manage up a little bit and sort of say, help me figure this out. And if you're the ED, you can do that with your board because that's what your board is there for. Another piece is to do some research around that and sort of say, well, at a conference like this, hey, when you got into that job, you know, what kind of expansion when you really focused on this, get some feedback from some other side. So the first step, though, is to get to that goal. And before you move forward, you're going to want to spend some time. What is it you're trying to market for? Is it the organization as a whole, or is it a specific program or function? Okay. And then, you know, what is that action we want taken? Okay. Of any part of this goal, if you have to sort of do it like in an iterative process, to your point of like, I don't know what this answer is, you need to know this answer first. At least, what's the action I want people to take? Okay? Then you can kind of circle back around after you do some research. So that's step one, the clear goal. The second step is doing some research and some analysis. So the types of things I want you to look at in terms of trends are environmental trends. There's probably things going on with the resource. Maybe there's a bunch of second homers coming in, right, affecting water quality. What's going on with economics in my area, demographics, that perceptions thing, how do they see us, and who's the competition? And these are some great sources, all right? Your board of directors, we often don't use boards the way we're supposed to, and they're supposed to sort of be eyes and ears to some extent. So you can go to your board of directors and say, what's going on in the external environment that you think might affect us in the future? Just an open-ended question. What are they hearing about? What are people talking about again and again in these other areas? So your board is the place to start. Other great resources for this. Can I tell you, especially if you're in a mid to smaller town, nobody knows what's going on with the demographics like the local realtors do. Anytime I do a project with a local land trust or water group, I tell them I need to talk to a realtor. Okay, realtors know tons of stuff because they need to know what people care about and what their interests are. They know what people ask about. They pay attention to business trends. They pay attention to land trends. They pay attention to recreational trends. They pay attention to government trends. Huge resource. Other ones, kind of your local businesses. You know, go talk to the outfitters. Go talk to those folks because that small business mind hat is really useful. Or your local chamber or your local economic development folks are going to know a lot of what's going on. Census.gov, all the 2010 stuff is on there. Go to the quick facts, you'll see how growth has happened, what's going on in your zip code or your state. And then interviews and focus groups is a great way, especially if you're thinking about some new audiences, right? Folks said a little bit about, you know, the kind of graying. A focus group is a great way to start to get to know some other folks and what their interests are. And what you do is you do these things, you sort of have a hunch. Okay, I know the action I want taken. I have a hunch that it's these folks over here who maybe are my audience, but I don't know. But you probably know one person, right? We know one person who's a typical mom of a young family who just moved into that new subdivision. or someone on your board does. Okay? So you call that person up, you say, we're trying to do some more outreach. Could you invite some of your friends and neighbors over for coffee and let us come talk to them for an hour? And actually not talk to, listen to. That's a cheap and easy focus group. You go in there and you're not asking, do you know us? You're asking things like, why did you move here? Do you guys ever go down to the river? You know, what does it mean to you to have someone watching out for water quality? Things like that. You're finding out if they care about you or not and why. That's kind of what a focus group looks like. So some of this is that direct, specific scientific information, data, facts, and some of it is more qualitative. But these are the types of things that let you answer the question about what are some of the trends. And then you have to ask this question. So what? What does it mean? Well, if I'm trying to grow my membership base to raise X new dollars, and I know that I live in the poorest county in Ohio, and I know that competition has gone up, and I know from my local realtor that foreclosure has leveled off and that the housing seems to be coming back, and I know from my local businesses that things seem to be coming back up. Okay, now I really know my operating environment in which I'm trying to get that new membership goal met, don't I? Isn't that a way better, more comfortable place to come to that from than, okay, I'm just starting this job and I guess we'll just try to increase it 10%. And I'll go write a new brochure. Okay? So, I mean, the conclusions you draw from that are like, okay, things are coming back. People are starting to spend money again. But we're still a pretty economically depressed area. So I might see an increase, but it's probably going to be modest. So what, right? Really good information. And then when you sit down, your boss, your board, whomever says, how come your goal is only 2%? You've got an answer to that. There's a reason why. There's an objective reason why that's our goal. Okay? So what? So then...
It depends, though, too, on what your base you're starting from. If your goal is to increase something by 2%, but you're starting at 100,000, that's a lot different than if you're starting at 10.
Did everybody hear that? He said it depends also on what your base is. If you are starting at 100,000 members, increasing 2% might be significant. And if you only have 100 members, increasing 2% is not. That's an excellent point. You're absolutely right. And I would definitely argue you should look at it both ways. Because you should also, when you look at your population base as well, if we think we're going to find our new members in our county, and we want 50 new members, and there's only 100 people in the county. I know that's not real. But, you know, then it's like, well, we're going to get 50% of the people who live here to become members? Probably not, right? But 50% might be a 20% increase in our membership. You know, so you do kind of want to look at it both ways, yeah.
I'd also make a point on it's not always about the quantity of the member, it's the quality of the member. I'd much rather have a small number of quality members than a large number of members.
Yes, that's a great point. Another piece that I like to talk about sometimes, and it sounds like maybe you've had some experience with this, and some other comments over here hinted at it as well. In the realm of community organizing, they talk about a ladder of engagement. Okay, so it's my first step in, but then what's my next step, and my next step, and what's the destination you want me to get to anyway, right? So sometimes my marketing goal, especially if it's a new audience, what's the first step I want taken, and how many people do I want to take that step? But it may be that you have a pool of people who've been around and they show up loyally to your event once a year, and they never do anything else with you. Well, you actually maybe want to deepen the relationship with them, right? Or maybe we've got some members who've kind of been stuck at the same level for the last 10 years, and we know there's some folks with some other means in there. And we've never actually paid attention to kind of converting them. So there's different points along that ladder of engagement that your marketing plan might point to. Okay? Does that make sense? So what helps you sort of say, okay, then from what's going on in my environment, here's what's really important. And then, to your point about, then how do I know how big of a market I'm looking for? Here's what I want you to add up. Here's the what action I want taken, and then here's what I know about the operating environment and trying to get that done in? What are all the different slices or segments who might, given the situation, take this action? What's that laundry list? Because as you do this research, some things are going to pop up. You're going to see patterns, and you're going to go, man, people keep talking to me about those folks over there, or those new fly fishermen, or those whatever. Folks are going to you're going to see these things emerge, and you're going to have, wow, there's all of these possible options, different ways I could go. And it's important to pay attention to that, because even with our friends, there's differences in how they interact. Read that?
No.
So he's okay making the sign and the other people aren't. So even the folks on this end of your bell curve who are tried and true interact with you differently and see you differently. So pulling it apart a little bit above and beyond, these are my fishermen guys, and these are my boat guys, and these are my within 10-mile folks. There's going to be some other segments. You want to kind of pull it down a little bit and sort of, I don't know how to explain this other than there's chunks there. They may be geographic. They may be how they relate. You know, there's different chunks in there. By the time you've done a little bit of research, you'll just have a sense of who those are. And then what you want to hone in is who's most likely to take this action. Of all of those 3 or 4 or 5 segments that kind of popped up that my research helped me see, who's most likely to? So let me tell you a story. I just did a fundraising plan with a water education group in Colorado. And kind of similar to your group, for these folks, it's all about having balanced information because they're trying to sort of change the tone of dialogue, which is very, very fractious in Colorado. They're trying to have folks look at information more holistically. That's a pretty much of a niche because most folks around these issues have their stake in the ground somewhere. So convincing people that there's some value around this value, it's a hard sell. And they really, 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 really want to be able to raise their money the way TNC raises its money. They really, really want this pool of major donors to write these big checks. And I said, look, if we're going to do this, we have to actually look at the research and talk to some people and see who's most likely to. And you know what? And you all know this because you have other values. The folks who resonate with your values, give you money, give it because they resonate with your values. So this group that's about unbiased, balanced information can't really get traction with major donors who tend to cluster around environmental groups because those folks have a bias. So I had to go back and be like, yeah, you might want them. They're not going to do this for you. They don't align with your values. You know who does? It's their same usual suspects. It's some of the attorneys and the engineers and the water educators. Because for those guys, if their customer base gets a little bit more informed, their lives are easier. And I'm like, hey, it's not sexy, but it's true. And you've had the same 300 members for the last 10 years, and there's way more than that in Colorado. So for them, it wasn't who are the new people who can do this, it's who are the people who are stuck that you can move along, and then who is kind of more of the same. It wasn't really the answer they wanted, but it's what the research showed, and it's what's going to get them the money raised. So I want you to focus in then, of all those segments, who's most likely to? Who's most likely to volunteer for you in the way that you want it done? Right? Who's most likely to come to your event? I want you to focus in there. If you don't have those folks fully engaged, don't come to me and say, yeah, but those folks over there, they need to get it. If they do, but sequencing. Okay, you're probably not getting your most likely tos yet. There's probably growth there, and there's probably some new markets there if you're looking to diversify your audience base. Okay, so that's why of your whole goal, I need this clear before you start, because at the end of your research, I need you to be able to answer this question: who's most likely to do this? Which is why when you say, well, then what's my right marketing plan? I don't know because I don't know what the action is. Right? I need to know this first.
Would you, is it okay to look at this as the action that we want is we want them to give us money?
Yeah.
Or,
yeah. It is, because it's not just about you. Because, and this is what we do a lot, You ever gone on a date with this person? I am the center of the universe. Let me tell you all about me. Right? Okay. The next step in your, this is, 1 was the goal, 2 was doing that analysis to sort of see who are most likely to, and finding that right audience. And then 3 is to get to know them better. Okay, you're not your target market. Even if they look like you, buy their shoes where you buy your shoes. Do on the river what you do on the river. They're probably not exactly like you. Okay? We need to get to know them deeply. And if you already have a pretty sophisticated marketing operation, then I would have you start here, because there's always something new to learn about our markets, isn't there? There's always something that we didn't know. Something has changed for them. They've gone through the recession too. What's going on with them? Never assume you know what it's about for them. Don't be this guy. Okay? So getting to know your target market is actually a lot of fun. It can feel a little James Bond, but it is okay to do. You officially have permission. And it's really interesting once you start looking at people in your community with these lenses on. I was on a board for a while, and it was an arts organization, and I started going to different openings in different parts of town to try to figure out who art people were, and the thing that I realized was that if the women had dance toes on, they were probably my people, and if they had heels on, they were with the other art district. It's crazy, but it was true, and if I went up to the woman with the dance toes on, they were my people. It's really funny. So you want to start looking for them. You want to know questions that you can ask them. You maybe want to focus group them some more. And what you really want to know the most is what is their need or interest relative to your cause or your organization. Which one do you think I'm going to say?
Cause.
To your cause. What is it that they value? Like, so, okay, you're maybe out somewhere, and yeah, I'll place that the right shoes on. It's probably one of my guys. So, do you pay attention to, water issues? What does it mean? What does it mean to you, right? That someone's paying attention to water quality. You want to start to get to know why they care. To the topic about messaging, you want to hear how they talk about it. What's their language? Do they know what watershed is? I don't know, maybe they do. Maybe when you ask that question, they look at you like you're speaking Greek. And I don't want you to do this alone. This is a great way. Who would like their boards more engaged in marketing and or fundraising? Okay. Everybody. Here is the beautiful, my favorite thing to have boards do. And if you do nothing else from this, and you go back and have your board do this, it's going to be a good thing. And this is in the handout here that, again, will get emailed out because we don't have enough, is to set them a listening assignment. Okay? You're going to share with them, here's sort of who it is, and here's the profile. We build out what we call a profile of them. Here's demographically, here's where they live, how much money they make, what we know about them, and then what we call the psychographics. Does everyone know psychographics? Is that new? Got one here. Psychographics is, what are my values? Right? What are their values? What do they care about? How do they spend their free time? Which is kind of part of that competition thing we talked about, right? What type of work do they do? Why do they live here? That sort of stuff. Okay? And then you share that with your board. Kind of say, here's our target audience, and here's the action we want them to take. But we need to learn a little bit more about them so we customize. Okay? And then you tell them, you answer any questions. You say, these are the 3 or 4 things we most need to know. You want to give them some specific questions. This is a listening assignment. And then you say, okay, board, if everyone here could commit to talking to, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, pick a number, people each month for the next 4 months. So let's say 5 times 4 is 20, and let's say we've got 10 board members. 200 people that you ask the same 4 questions to. This is market research. This is how nonprofits do market research for free. Okay? The beauty of it is, at least from a fundraiser's perspective, is I then have board members out doing what I want board members to do, which is talk to people, get more comfortable talking about the organization, reaching out and talking about these issues with people on a regular basis, and getting to know who our folks are in a real way. Now, you got to give them a way to report back. So maybe at the board meeting, the first 10 minutes of every board meeting, what did you learn? What have you observed? Someone's taking notes. Okay? So somehow to get to know this audience, and your board is a built-in way to do it. It's really board appropriate, and it's baby steps towards some engagement. So that's one thing I like to do. Once you have your psychographics, your profile, your information, yes?
What if your board is from, I don't know, it's 12, 16 of them from one of 47 rural Alaskan villages on the Yukon River, with populations from 1 to,
I was just in Anchorage. Hi, from Alaska.
Anchorage, Alaska?
Yeah, nice to meet you. Yeah, so what I learned about Alaska is that 41% of the population, well, 42% of the population live in Anchorage. And like another 40% live in communities of 10,000 people or less, which is what you're talking about.
Ours are
even like
1,000.
Yeah, like itty bitty. So in this case, maybe it's not in person, maybe it's when they're talking to folks. You have to customize so that you deal with the actual logistic reality. And the fact that, right, you can't get there from here however many months out of the year because the road's closed.
It was cheaper
right?
to fly here than to fly here.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, you do have to customize, but folks, how hard is it they connect with people? And it may be that your whole board also doesn't do it. It may be that there are 2 or 3 folks who are maybe a bit more mobile, and you focus in with them. Yeah. Yeah. But no, yeah, the logistics, oh my gosh, I was up there with the health folks, and we were talking about the same health delivery in that part of, yeah, good night. Talk about your logistics. None of us have anything to complain about. There's no reason why. And then we just can't, I don't care how rural you are. It's not like that. So the reason why we do this is that here's how it comes together to get the customization, okay? That profile, that's your understanding of your audience. And their needs and interests, plus the action you want them to take, okay? Equals, it tells you really nicely, cleanly, the messages, the products and services, or the outreach strategies that are going to connect with them. So, can I give you an example from a hybrid land water group? Is that going to offend anybody if they don't just do water stuff? Okay. You never know. I always like to ask. I did a marketing plan with a group in very, very upstate New York, almost Canada, all volunteer. Rural area, pretty economically depressed. They're an area called the Indian River Lakes area, so it's kind of, they're conserving primarily swampland, but for water quality reasons, and working with the lake associations and all of these folks. And the board, the folks who do the work, by and large are second homers. So they're there 4 or 5 months out of the year. So how does that go over well with the folks who are there year round? They love it. They love it. No, they don't. So they said first we want to do a marketing plan to raise more money. We said, okay, so we did that as, that one action. And as I got to know them better, it became really clear that these 12 people and the 15 acres of swamp and all the waterfront and everything, 12 people was actually not enough to do the work of the organization in an ongoing, sustainable way. So I had to go back to them and tell them their marketing goal was wrong, which was awesome, and say, before you get money, you need people doing work, because you got no staff. So that changed the desired action to, we actually want them to engage as loyal, long-term volunteers, okay? And then we went and did the research. And the profile came back saying that the folks most likely to do this work were folks who were year-round residents, because then you actually have folks able to volunteer all year long, which was the desired action, right? There were kind of 2 main segments in the community. One was the real hunter. Basically, when I focus group these guys, they said, if it moves and it's in season, we will hunt it, kill it, and eat it. I didn't know you could go bullfrogging. I didn't know what that was. I've learned all sorts of things. And then there was this other group that tended to be a little bit younger and loved to be out on the land as well, but just were not that focused on, let's say, extraction. They were as excited to go and see wildlife or just be kayaking on the lake for the sake of kayaking on the lake. And if there happened to be fish, they'd go fish. But they were just really a different profile. They were younger. They tended to have kids. They tended to be more likely to be in service jobs, whereas the other guys tended to be more entrepreneurial. And they were interested in this organization, a little bit more open to it, because they were a little bit, none of these folks would call themselves environmentalists or conservationists. That word didn't work. But they were a little bit more open to that. They sort of thought that, you know, I like being here because I like the natural environment. And they talked about wildlife, and they never used the biodiversity word once. And all my volunteer and all of this board was all talking about biodiversity. And those folks were like, oh, I really like that, you know, the beaver walks across the road. But they would talk about the wildlife, but they never said biodiversity. So there was some messaging there. So what it came down to then was the messaging was very much around preserving the qualities you like here, which is the ability to go and be in nature, the ability to see these animals. They talk to me about animals all the time, but in the language that they used, which was not the biodiversity language. It was not about the flora, but about the fauna. And these folks were all botanists. That was hard for them to give up. I'm like, no, I'm sorry, you got to talk about the furries. If the furries, you know, I was like, look at it this way: the top predators, everything else is good. You'll get what you want. You're not compromising your mission. But they want to talk about the animals, okay? They liked being outdoors, so events that actually let them come outdoors, right? They had kids, so things that they could do as a family, right? And they were clustering in certain areas. In this area, if you wanted to actually connect with that demographic, there was one place to be, and it was at the local fire department carnival that happened every June. Because everybody with kids took their kids to that. Guess what? That was in the summer when those folks were there. They could actually do that. Okay? So it became very simple, and really, you look at it and go, God, we had this consultant come in and come up here 3 times to do this research and focus group to tell us, talk about the critters, let them do stuff with their kids that's outdoors, and go to the fireman's rally. Yeah, they did, but you know what? They're getting their volunteers. That's how this stuff sort of comes together. So, just one thing I want to mention that I think is really important is, because you're nonprofits, a lot of times marketing does not look like marketing. A lot of times the right marketing strategy is not the brochure, or the website, or what have you. A lot of times it's a program or some kind of service that you offer. If it's a brand new, we worked with a group around Bend, Oregon, and for them with their target market, it was a bunch of folks who were moving there for quality of life reasons, a term that organization hated. They don't hate it now, because now that they talk that way, people can find themselves in the organization. And what those people really needed was to feel connected to the community. So they actually started throwing a bunch of wine and cheese parties at local restaurants, just to let people meet people in the neighborhood. And they were the organization through which that happened. And so then when people kind of got settled and wanted to volunteer, they went there because it was the one group that paid attention to them and that they knew. They kind of got in first. So sometimes it's something like that that doesn't look like the flyer or the fundraising event or something like that. So I want you just to keep your mind really open when you get to this part about customization. So what you're looking for, my friend who just finished his MBA said marketing is about the pain. If you can find the pain, and then you can answer the pain. And it's sort of a no-brainer. So if you get to know that audience and they're new and they don't feel connected, or they care about that water quality issue, but they don't actually think that there's anything that they can do about it, and it really just overwhelms them, and so they just tune it out. Then they need a little teeny chunk, right? Not the whole big thing. So what's their pain or their issue or their need? And then how do we communicate around that? Use that as a point of connection. Okay? So sometimes it's just, well, what's the pain? And how do I do it? Or what do I love and how do I give them more of that? Okay, so that's why it's their need or interest relative to your cause, not to your organization. Does that make sense? Okay. So we only have about 10 minutes left, so I want to talk for just a few minutes about implementation and then the social media stuff, okay? So this is my parting shot, by the way. Just because you're going to go back and you maybe don't yet have your clear marketing goal, okay? Maybe you don't know for sure if it's your role in your organization because everybody sort of does their own thing. Maybe you just don't feel like you've got time to do it. So maybe when we breathe in December, maybe we can take a look at it. You still never not market. The same way you never say, you know what, I will pay the bills and balance the checkbook for the organization at the end of the year. Okay? It'll just keep. Actually, it won't. It's a fundamental organizational function. So even if all you do is the next time your donors and members come together, you go into that with a specific thing you want to learn to better understand how they relate to the cause. That's marketing. Okay? So I always want you doing something. And it's about that relationship. And so we always want to be there. The key around implementation is you at some point do need to get to your goal, do a little bit of research, even if it's down and dirty, break it down to your customized strategies, and then you got to actually just turn it into a work plan, which is just a matter of sitting down, going to the coffee shop for the afternoon, breaking it down, and assigning tasks out. Okay? And if you've got a committee, there's going to be some stuff in here about working with the marketing committee to hopefully make that happen. The piece around social media, though, gosh, it really does. I used to 2 years ago, I'd say, well, it depends on who your demographic is, depends on who your target market is. We're kind of past that, aren't we? Now, doesn't it feel like, well, we have to be on Facebook, right? The same way 20 years ago, it was like, oh, we don't need no stinking website, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, we don't have a website. That's when I was starting a nonprofit. It's like, oh God, we need a website now. We're sort of there with some of the social media. Who's got a Facebook page for the organization? Everybody. Awesome. Who's doing Twitter? Okay. What else do you use?
A blog.
A blog. Who else has got a blog? What else? YouTube. Tumblr.
Flickr.
Flickr. Oh, Pinterest, that's the new hot one. Yeah, not a lot of folks are using that yet.
Scoop it.
Scoop it. I haven't heard that one. Okay. The social media stuff, there's a couple key pieces. I'll jot these down, but again, they're in the book that I'm going to get to. One is the nonprofit benchmark study. They've started doing this annually. It's a group called N10 out of San Francisco. They really are the tech people. And they're looking at trends. They're trying to get to some baseline data. So we all know, what is this stuff good for? From 09 to 10, they saw increases in dollars raised by about 10%, increase in number of gifts, not amount, number of gifts by about 7%. And average size of gifts in that year to environmental groups was about $46. We're talking online giving. But this is just good baseline data, so you can kind of look at your own results for. The downside of this is that it tends to focus on really big organizations, which isn't necessarily real translatable, but it's a place to start. And there's not a whole lot of other really good research right now. So it's worth downloading and looking at that. The other piece, there's a gentleman named, oh my God, Andy Robinson.
Yeah.
So Andy Robinson wrote an article that I wish I'd written. It's the best. It's called Reality Check. He did this for Institute of Conservation Leadership, ICL. And it's called Reality Check, how grassroots environmental groups are raising money online. It boils it down. If you're doing it and you sort of feel like, we are doing it, but I don't know if I'm getting anything out of it. We're doing it because we feel like we have to, but I don't know. It just synthesizes everything. Like I said, I really wish I wrote it. I just read it a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
So how do you take those people on Facebook or your followers and on Twitter and actually convert them to take action? Yeah, they love to follow you, but so what?
Exactly. Well, and the thing to remember with any of these is that they're not really your people, right? Because Facebook can change the rules of the game whenever they want to.
Right.
And then poof, maybe your people are gone. I'd say if you have a big following, you want to have a specific goal. What is that first step in? And that goal better somehow get you their contact information. Right? So you want a specific door in, a specific action they can take that also gets you their contact information. So then you don't lose them. And then what's that letter of engagement beyond that? But what's that action you want taken? Like, what do you think that they're, yeah.
I'm not sure if this is something others are finding, but we're finding that we have a pretty good database set up with quite a few people that are in contact with us. But we have our Facebook followers are almost entirely a different population, and our Twitter followers are almost entirely a different population. And out of those populations, we can get different things. Our Facebook people will show up to events and they'll come to the cleanup, but they're not going to give. People on our database are more likely to give than people on, different groups.
That's really true. Kind of, if you read some of these studies, yeah, the Facebook is great for. I see some groups using it to coordinate volunteers. I see some groups using it to drive attendance to events, and then kind of engaging folks in more general ways. I've seen some really interesting kind of like photo contest type things going on. But yeah, how people engage probably as you start paying attention to their profile, it's going to tell you a lot about their interest in who they are. They're going to take different kinds of action. The main takeaways I'm reading about right now with social media is the trend towards visual. It's the whole timeline conversion on Facebook. So if you didn't come here with your camera and you're not snapping pictures, next year do it. The other trend is towards location. It's the Foursquare thing. And using that's a big piece on what's keeping people engaged and interested in the social media. And if you go to like our Facebook page, we suck at it, so don't look at ours. Like I think we've got one picture and it's just like our logo that, it's terrible. We're not taking our own advice yet, but we're getting better. I should take a picture of you all right now. Actually, I'm going to. And the other, the big piece from Andy's article for me is that, the relationship still trumps. That personal touch still trumps, especially if you're looking at this stuff as a means to try to raise some funding. And that if you have to narrow down and focus in and it's about fundraising for you, nothing yet in social media is beating the well-executed email campaign that's sort of coordinated yet, which is why I like to keep my eye on this stuff, because one day it's going to shift. But we haven't yet found the way to use the social media stuff for fundraising outside that kind of Red Cross disaster, urgent, compressed time frame sort of model. Look, it's Riley. Hi, everybody. Everyone on their computers, taking pictures. So, hi, everybody. Yeah, I mean, there's a quote in there, and this is from someone from the Obama for America campaign, said if you're running a campaign and you push it from 18 different places, it's going to be better. But if you have to pick one, growing your email list is going to be a better use of your time. I don't think there's anyone who knows more about this than the person who did that last campaign, probably. So I take her at her word. And the thing is that we always want to have that clear action for the gentleman who talked about the Facebook folks and how do we get them over. Get specific, pick one action you want them to take and communicate around that. Maybe it's join as a member, maybe it's like some specific sort of campaign time frame to compress the thing. Maybe they get a discount if they do it, I don't care. But one action. And if it works, great, you found the right action. Right? And if it didn't, then another one. But don't tell them, hey, do these 8 things. Okay? Communicate around one thing. Yeah.
I have a question about if anybody else, or if if anybody's starting to get pushback against that now I know personally, and other people have come in too, they're getting bazooks, just tons. I mean, without even Facebook, they're getting tons of newsletters and comment on email. So your email box is just full of organizations sending you newsletters or blurbs, or some of it's fundraising, some of it's just information. So starting to say, I don't want to get your newsletter on email anymore. I want a paper copy.
Yeah.
Are other people starting to get that?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, obviously you just go with it.
I want to direct that here, and then I'm going to say two things and let you go. And if you've got questions, come on up after. Keep this in mind. Okay, you want to get to that point, like the woman in the back who said, well, my folks who come to me from here look like this and do this, and the folks who come to me from here look like this and do that. Okay, so that then when you're communicating out, it's around their interest. Okay, you know how on Amazon, if I go there, they're going to suggest the books I might like, and if you go there, it's going to be a whole different list. It's that customized marketing. We all just expect it anymore, right? And when we get stuff sent to us, that's talking to all these other people, and my stuff's buried down here, you know, under the fold, as it were. I don't feel like you're seeing me or hearing me, right? Okay? It's another reason why 1 or 2 target markets total to start. It's not to say we won't communicate if you don't fit our profile, but hone in, and then your stuff is more valuable. It's more on message. It's talking about what people actually care about. It might be the one thing that they do open consistently. So this is the customization piece. Couple things, again, in case you didn't hear, make sure either get your email on that sign-up sheet or give me your card and I'll get these PDFs out. Again, apologies. Now that we're done, that book's gonna, the box of books is gonna magically appear. My apologies. Yeah. I have a couple things up here that you're happy to take. This is our integrated strategy for nonprofit success and sustainability. And then for those of you who are kind of my 8s and ups, this is some pretty basic overview stuff, but the next step is how do you be really constituent-centered in all that you do. Okay, I've got a lot of these. This is a great primer on that. There are evaluations. Please take that. And please, I really suggest before you leave today, pull your phone out. Make an appointment with yourself for next week, because by then you'll have this PDF. Because you've been at this for 3 days. And you've had a lot of stuff, and you're going to go back, and if you're anything like the gentleman from Colorado Watershed Assembly I talked to before he left, it's going to come back to 8,000 emails and 20,000 voicemails. So put in your phone, go back, review the marketing stuff, decide the one action I'm going to take this month towards having a stronger, more productive marketing approach. Okay, if you don't put it in your phone, you're going to forget you came to the session until you're here next year. Okay? So I'm serious. Like, I want you put it in your phone. Okay. Thank you very much for your time and your attention. Oh, and if you have evaluations, you can bring them up here or leave them